Good morning, everyone. My name is Macon Lovelace, and I am a partner with Training Partners here in Columbia, and proud to be serving this year as your new chairman for the Chamber's Public Policy Committee for the new fiscal year. It's been a pleasure working with Mark James this past year. Mark, we're very appreciative of the work he's done in leadership and leading our public policy efforts. We look forward to his continued participation in what will provide to be a challenging and exciting year. Thank you, Mark, for all the work that you have done. I'd like to welcome to each of you to the Chamber's Forum and extend a special welcome to our guest speaker, Mr. Bob Morgan. This event is a monthly meeting which highlights critical issues that are impacting or have the ability to impact our local business community. We'd also like to thank our main sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina and Bank of America. Again, it's great to have each of you with us as we highlight critical issues facing our state and potentially impacting our business community. It's my pleasure to introduce Bob Morgan, president of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. Bob formerly served as the head of the Charlotte Chamber, and prior to accepting the position with the South Carolina Chamber, worked with Robinson Bradshaw Law Firm. Each year, the South Carolina State Chamber hits the road to hear from business leaders across the state about the issues facing their companies. The Grassroots Tour is part of the South Carolina Chamber Alliance partnership that connects the state, regional, and local chambers of commerce and our partners. The feedback received from the meetings will help shape the 2021 Competitiveness Agenda, which lays out the business community's priorities for next year's legislative session. Bob, welcome to South Carolina, and more importantly, Columbia. We thank you for your leadership and participating today. Before Bob gets started, everyone please note that there is a chat room to be used for questions. The Chamber team will be monitoring this during the presentation and allow you to go by these questions, run them by Bob when he's finished. So Bob, take it away. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate the introduction and great to be with all of you. I suspect many of you are more familiar with this process than I am, this being my first time, but particularly appreciate the opportunity to be connected with the Columbia Chamber. Carl, I'm not sure how far back we go, but we've worked together through our professional association for many years, and appreciate the good work and leadership that you provide. And I'm now a resident of Columbia, so really appreciate the work you all do, keeping Columbia growing and our economy healthy. And as you just heard in the introduction, I like to say, having spent almost 30 years with the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and also the Gaston Chamber of Commerce next door to Charlotte, I'm a local chamber guy first, so especially appreciate what you all and all of the other local chambers across the state do for our community. So delighted to be with you this morning. We're going to give you an interactive experience. If you can see across the top of the screen, if you can on your cell phones download www.menti.com, and then if you'll type in this number 8528-1276, you will be able to follow along the presentation, but you'll also have an opportunity to be surveyed and to give us your input on a variety of issues. Sarah, I'm not able to see how many people are signed on yet, but when it looks like we're close to 17 or 18, we'll go to the next slide.
Bob, you can go ahead into the next slide. People will join, I think, and as they come in, we'll be able to see once they start voting.
Okay, great. So let's go to the next slide. Quick plug on the South Carolina Chamber. Our vision is that South Carolina's economy is the most vibrant in the United States, creating opportunity and prosperity for all. And our mission is to be the leading voice for business in South Carolina. Next slide, please. And I'm going to try to, okay. You all will know some of the folks who are part of our team. Cynthia Bennett, been here about 20 years, our new Chief Diversity Officer. Sarah Cohen, who's helping us to navigate this presentation this morning, a Director of Marketing and PR and Events. Caroline, our new CFO, Mike Manning, a former colleague from the Charlotte Chamber, Laurie Moore, who many of you will know, who previously was with the Columbia Chamber. Kelly Wolf is our new Chief Revenue Officer, has come to us from the Kentucky Chamber. Jill Valdez, an Administrative Coordinator, Katie Titus, our lobbyist, and Swati Patel, our EVP of Public Policy. Next slide. Okay, we want to start with a quick federal update and a couple of issues that we are focused on. The ARPA, or American Rescue Plan Act, $8.8 billion to South Carolina, and state government is trying to figure out as we speak, how do we deploy this money. On Friday, or I guess on Thursday, Governor McMaster announced, I think it's $350 million to widen I-26 between Columbia and Charleston. Huge amount of money, tremendous one-time opportunity to make investments in our infrastructure. Speaking of infrastructure, you all know, of course, the U.S. Senate has passed the $1 trillion infrastructure investment bill. Again, several $100 million to come to South Carolina for highways, bridges, other hard infrastructure. Like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, like the National Association of Manufacturers, we are supporting this bill, and it now has moved from the Senate to the House. Unfortunately, our House delegation, with the exception of Representative Clyburn, I believe every other member is opposed, but we are encouraging folks at the local level, if you support this bill, please go ahead and let members of the House delegation know of your support. So would certainly invite any of you to do the same. Next slide, please. As we look backwards to the legislative session that ended earlier in the summer, big win for the business community to get COVID-19 liability protection legislation passed. I can tell you that was a huge lift involving local chambers, business groups, higher education. Frankly, should have happened a year ago, but we did get it done this summer. The budget has significant funding for the expansion of rural broadband, and the budget was very pro-education in terms of both policy reform and funding for teacher pay and improving accountability for some of the underperforming schools and districts in the state. As we look ahead to 2022, the hate crimes bill is still with us. We're very excited. And again, another strong effort between local chambers and other business groups to get an overwhelming bipartisan vote out of the State House. The bill then moved to the Senate, where it was passed favorably by a slight margin out of the Judiciary Committee. That bill will likely come up to the floor of the Senate in January. And here again, for any of you who support that bill, letting members of the Senate know of your support is going to be critical as we get closer to January. Comprehensive tax reform, something that we have supported for many years, not likely to come up next year. I've been told by some of the top leadership, don't even use the word comprehensive. There is a lot of discussion, however, around some particular tax cuts. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes here. But going into an election year, the state is flush. I say that we don't know where this COVID economy is going next, so that may or may not be the case in several months. But there does seem to be some interest in some individual tax cuts. And then legal liability reform, something that the business community is trying to re-gear up, if you will, after efforts from 2005 and even I think 2011. And we'll talk a little bit more about the details of legal liability reform in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So back to the hate crimes bill. Just wanted to leave this action step. If you'd like to be on our mailing list to get updates, calls to action, simply text Pass Hate Crimes SC, Hate Crime SC, to 52886. And this all is an introduction that brings us to the competitiveness agenda. which is how your state chamber of commerce puts together the business agenda for any given legislative session. You all are the 6th or 7th local chamber who we now have met with this presentation. We will soon be conducting a member survey of our members. We'll get feedback from our various policy committees, and from that we will distill out of it the public policy agenda for the coming legislative session. So again, we appreciate you all being a part and providing the input that we're getting ready to collect from you. Next slide, please. So let's go ahead and get started. And hopefully everybody has been able to download www.menti.com. And let's go ahead and cast your first vote. How would you rate South Carolina's overall economy? Excellent, good, bad, or not sure? So we have 21 participants. We have 7 votes in. If anybody needs help downloading, just drop a note in the chat box. We got nine votes cast, 10. So we're just about the halfway point. Lynn Hutto needs help. Lynn, if you can put your phone number on there, I'll ask Sarah to give you a call. Thank you, Lynn, for the phone number. Are there others who need help downloading this web page? We've got 10 votes in out of 21 participants, 22 participants. Okay, perhaps 10 is going to be the max. We'll get Lynn set up. Let's go to the next. Oh, we're at 11. Let's go to the next slide. You all generally think the economy is good, although the not sure perhaps might interpret that there's some uncertainty with where the COVID spike is going to take us. But like others across the state, you all are generally more positive than not about the state of our economy. What industry are you in? Manufacturing, professional services, healthcare, tourism or hospitality, government nonprofit, agribusiness, construction, or other? We've got several of you who are other. Might we infer, well, I would just ask if any of you would be willing to, through the chat, tell us what other industries you represent. So here again, we've had about 11 responses. Okay, real estate is one I thought it might be. Thank you, Rusty, for that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Chuck is in economic development. Sarah, can we go to the next slide, please? Has the pandemic changed how you operate your business long term? Yes, no, or not sure? Okay, clear majority have changed how you go about doing business. Next slide. We'll go a little deeper into this one. How has the pandemic changed how you operate your business? Allowing employees to work from home 1 or more days, more focus on health and well-being, more remote or online work activity and meetings, less business travel, and all of the above are your options. And the clear lead is all of the above, which is consistent, again, with what we've seen elsewhere. So we're up to 12 votes. So we must have Lynn up and running here. Okay, next slide, please. I'll shift to the subject of workforce. You all no doubt are hearing it just as we are. Over 70% of our members told us earlier this summer that the labor shortage was the #1 challenge that was keeping them from growing. And you all probably know the numbers. We have over 90,000 job openings in South Carolina, yet 107,000 people currently collecting unemployment. We have one of the lowest workforce participation rates in the country. That was a problem pre-COVID, and it remains a persistent problem today, with leisure, hospitality, and manufacturing being the sectors with the highest rates of job openings. So let's go to our first question related. Is your business facing a workforce challenge? Yes, no, or not sure. Okay, pretty dead even there, and split. Okay, next question, please. If you answered yes to that, what are your specific challenges? And here you can rank these in order of priority. Not enough people applying, lack of skilled workers, lack of childcare for employees, or COVID-related health concerns by employees. Go ahead and rank those in the order of priority. Okay. Lack of skilled workers is the early lead. We've got 4 votes in. This one takes a little bit longer. I would observe that right now in 4th place, lack of childcare for employees. That one consistently comes in 4th place, which is interesting because one of the arguments that was made earlier this summer by those who did not support the governor cutting off the federal benefits was they would cite the issue of lack of childcare for employees. But again, all of the folks we've surveyed prior to now, that one continues to come in 4th. Okay, only 5 votes out of 12 on previous. We'll give it another couple of seconds for others who may be prioritizing, or perhaps those of you who answered no did not fill this one out, so that would explain that. Okay, next slide, please. What actions are you taking to address your workforce challenges? And again, rank these in priority order. Increased wages and or better benefits, offering training opportunities, implementing COVID-related safety protocols, or changing hiring practices. Increased wages and or better benefits and changing hiring practices are the top two. Very consistent with what we have seen elsewhere across the state. Next slide, please. Let's switch from workforce to taxation. South Carolina ranks 11th highest in the country for the percentage of property taxes paid by businesses, with 68% of all property taxes paid by businesses. As it relates to our personal income tax rate at 7%, that is the highest rate in the South, more than double North Carolina's, for example. And according to the Tax Foundation, our tax climate ranks 33rd lowest. Our first question to you will be, how important is it to you that South Carolina have a competitive tax climate, with 1 ranking not important and 5 being very important? We're running all 5s. There's now 4.9 with just about everybody in. That would be one of the higher rankings of the groups we've been in front of. Typically, we get a score in the 4s, 4.5, 4.4, but 4.8 is the highest that I've seen so far. All right, let's dig down a little deeper into the tax questions. Do you think that the General Assembly in 2022 should lower the individual income tax? Again, that rate at 7%, one of the highest in the South. Some would argue that the effective rate is much less. Others would argue that that may be the case, but that it's a real marketing problem, that a family from Ohio, perhaps, that's looking to move to Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina, they go to Google, check out the tax rates. They might see 7%. They might not know that that's not always the actual rate, but it may be the reason they take us off their list of consideration. You all would like to see the individual income tax rate reduced by a significant margin. Next question, please. Do you believe that the General Assembly should reduce property tax burdens on businesses and on multifamily complexes? We included multifamily because many apartment complexes are taxed as businesses, which adds to the challenge of affordable housing for our workforce. And here again, you all are strongly in favor of reducing the property tax burdens on businesses. I can assure you that members of the legislature are very interested in the input that we receive on questions like this, and this will be great information to be able to convey to them. Next slide, please. Switching to legal reform, also known as tort reform. $429 billion is the cost of the legal system in the U.S. $2,802 is the cost of South Carolina's legal system per household. And the group paying for many of the high costs of insurance for liability insurance premiums, of course, is the business community. I can tell you from personal experience, having moved from North Carolina to South Carolina 5 months ago, the cost of insurance is significantly higher for me personally, having made the move. And I've since learned that somebody has to pay for the television ads that dominate our local stations. Okay, let's start the questions regarding legal reform. How concerned are you about cost and compensation of South Carolina's legal system? 1, not concerned. 5, very concerned. Looks like we're going to be somewhere around a 4.1, now a 4. And this is, we're up to 15 votes. So welcome to some of our recent arrivals here. For those of you who are with us on the tax question, that I think came in at 4.8. Tort reform comes at 4. You're very much concerned about it. However, when you compare the two, cutting taxes seems to rate higher than tort reform. And I can tell you that that is remarkably consistent with what we have heard elsewhere, where the cost of the legal system, 4 is actually a high score for what we've seen elsewhere. It tends to be 3.5 or so. So you're still concerned about it, but again, taxation seems to be the higher priority. But let's dig down into tort reform. Did you know that in South Carolina, a plaintiff can seek damages from one defendant even if other defendants are at the same level or more at fault? It's called joint and several liability. This has resulted in plaintiffs suing the deepest pocket for 100% of the claim rather than all of the defendants for their share of the fault. The Institute for Legal Reform ranks our lawsuit climate as the 37th lowest. I had a conversation with someone from the Farm Bureau the other day who told me an example of a driver had a passenger in their car. They were stopped at a red light. Another car rear-ended them. The car that rear-ended them did not have insurance. The passenger was injured, and the passenger sued the driver of the automobile simply because he had insurance, and the driver was held responsible for 100% of the claim, even though, again, the car was stopped legally at a red light. So with that set up, let's go to the question here. Do you support changing South Carolina's laws so the defendant must pay damages based on the defendant's share of the fault? That would be called comparative fault. Overwhelmingly, you support that. Rare to get a unanimous result with 14 votes in. It's 14-0. We had 15 vote previously, so perhaps there's one person remaining. Okay, strong support for changing the laws. Infrastructure, mentioned it earlier. We have the 4th largest highway system in the nation. We are the 6th fastest growing state in the nation. We still, notwithstanding recent modest increases in the gas tax, we still have the 36th lowest gas tax in the nation. Leading us to the next question. Would you support another gas tax increase to help improve our roads and bridges? Pretty solid majority. Little surprising considering that all of the federal relief is going to bring significant dollars, but a clear majority of you would still, notwithstanding that, be willing to pay more for your gas in order to improve our roads and bridges. Pretty clear majority, more than 2-to-1 there, with 15 votes in. Okay, next question, please. And we're nearing the end here, and we're going to finish with a subject that has already become part of the gubernatorial campaign for next year, something that's been talked about in the State House. And of course, 36 other states have already legalized medical marijuana use. In South Carolina, CBD oil and medical marijuana for certain illnesses are already legal. Supporters say that medical marijuana is beneficial for patients. Opponents say they're concerned with the lack of FDA approval. and the potential for increased crime. So our first question on this subject will be, do you support legalizing medical marijuana in South Carolina? Clear majority, 9-3, 10-3. Clear majority of you favor medical marijuana. Okay, our final question of you, do you support legalizing recreational marijuana use in South Carolina? Carl, this is where we count up the number of potheads in the Columbia Chamber.
Yeah, it's growing too. Look at it. People don't want to be called out.
Just kidding, of course. But so pretty much dead even, 7 in favor, 8 opposed. And that is closer. The other local chambers that we have visited so far have tended to be smaller communities, more rural communities, where the opposition is much more significant. But you all are pretty closely divided on this subject. So we're going to wrap up here with some follow-up information as we go to the next slide. What can you do to be part of the business community's voice in the State House in the upcoming legislative session? I would say to you, before I invite you to join the South Carolina Chamber, I would say kudos to all of you for belonging to the Columbia Chamber and to any other local chambers and communities where you may do business. That's where you can first be the most effective. We'd love to have you join the South Carolina Chamber. We'd love an opportunity to talk to anybody about that. In the meantime, whether you join our chamber or not, we'd love to add you to our mailing list so that you can receive weekly updates and other communications that come from your state Chamber of Commerce. Simply text SC Chamber to 52886 and you can sign up to be on that mailing list. Would go back and reiterate the work that remains to be done around the bipartisan infrastructure bill in Washington. If supportive, please let members of the U.S. House delegation from South Carolina know of your support. And we would also invite you to join our hate crimes coalition. So here again, to get updates from us, text SC Chamber to 52886. And Sarah, I believe that's our last slide.
That's it.
So I don't know if we want to leave that up or go back to seeing everybody's faces and open and available for questions and answers, depending on the time that's left. And I'll leave that up to the good folks at the Columbia Chamber.
Thank you, Bob. Great overview. A lot of great issues there, and it's very interesting to see the responses that everybody has outlined. Not a ton of questions other than, well, I'm looking here in the comment section. Chuck Whipple wants me to tell you hello. He says he met you several times with Ronnie Bryant, and welcome back to South Carolina, and thanks for your leadership.
Hello, Chuck. Good to be with you again.
I wanted to turn it over to Carl and Henry to see if they'd like to add any comments to what Bob has just covered and how that impacts our local chamber and some of the similar, employment issues and overarching themes that Bob's covered today.
No, I really want to thank Bob for joining us this morning, day after Labor Day. It's always a tough morning to get going, but some really interesting points. I will tell you, the tort reform is huge. I think anybody in business right now is paying more for their premiums on insurance because of some outstanding cases that the courts handed down. And so I think the joint several liability issues are huge. So thank you for your leadership there, Bob. That one's going to take a lot of work to get done. I was interested in the road stuff too, because the gas tax, to your point, we're going to see so much money coming down with the infrastructure bill. The problem is not money. The problem right now is the capacity and the number of road contractors available. There's just not enough. So if we need an entrepreneurial person on here to get in the road construction business, because I mean, you're looking at Malfunction Junction, for instance, is a great example. It's going to take 10 years, and there's money already set aside for it. So anyway, I think we're going to see a lot of money, but it's going to be slow progress on our infrastructure. But it's worth, it's noticeable when you leave or enter into South Carolina. You don't need a sign to tell you welcome to South Carolina. You can tell by the potholes. But so we've got the good opportunities ahead of us there at the State House this year. Taxes. Bob, interesting point here, because Columbia leads the nation in industrial taxes, and we're 60% higher in our commercial taxes than Charleston and Greenville. You should see a higher clip here of people that want change to, I've only been talking about it for a number of years. So we need the change, and anything that y'all can do, we really, really appreciate it. So Henry, what am I leaving out?
Sorry about that. I think you just about covered everything. There are some efforts about for what we have planned for small businesses. Susan, anything there?
We're continuing our work to make sure that we're providing our small businesses with information that will help them as they adjust through the times of COVID, to be sharing ideas, creativity, solutions, as far as, you know, how do you bring people in? How do you keep being dynamic and successful? So work continues there. And then it's not small business, but if I could mention, and Macon, I know you might mention this too, in October for the Issues Forum, we will be hosting our candidates for City Council. So that is going to be critical. We're hoping to be in person and on Zoom and on Facebook Live. So hopefully folks will join us for that. And then also we'll be hosting a Mayor's Candidates Forum on Monday, October the 18th at 4 p.m. And as everyone knows, extremely critical to the success of business in Columbia.
Yeah, let me echo that. I mean, I think we've got important election in November, and so we're going to have those candidates come and present to us their vision of Columbia, both the city council and mayoral. But I do think it's a pivotal race for all of us. So, Megan, that's it. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, just a few things to wrap up. I think we've all touched on, actually comes off the heels of Bob's presentation, but please use our chamber staff as a resource for employment and trying to determine you know, where their job fairs, job postings. I can tell you personally, our firm was trying to find a new property management maintenance technician, and I had one of our employees reach out to Susan relative to one of the you know, the local armed forces jobs fairs, and had a great turnout. Was very impressed with that. So as Bob highlights the issues of employment or lack thereof of good quality candidates in the state and here locally, please use our chamber resources. It's what you pay to be a member. Please use them. They're happy to help. And just highlight again some of the things that Susan and Carl, these upcoming dates: September 21st, we have a small business Richland Northeast Area Council meeting. October 5th, again, the Issues Forum with the City of Columbia Council candidates. October 7th, annual gala featuring the TAMs. October 18th, the city, the mayoral forum, and then November 8th, if needed, the runoff for the mayoral candidates. Hope to be able to do this soon in person, but until then, we'll continue via Zoom and other platforms. And want to thank our sponsors again, Bank of America and Blue Cross Blue Shield. Unless there's any other questions, we'll sign off. Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for y'all's time and the opportunity, and look forward to working with you as we put this thing together.
Sounds good.
Bob.
Thank y'all very much.
Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay healthy.